All right, we're ready to start Basics of Biblical Hebrew, Chapter 9. There. Last week we took a look at the Torah, which is just the first 5 books of the Bible. We looked at the names in the Hebrew, and we'll just kind of break into this. We'll have another lesson after this. We'll look at a little bit more. This is not in your book. This is just, since you're wanting to learn to read Hebrew, this thing is good for you to know a little bit more about how the Hebrew scriptures are laid out, what to expect. After that, we'll see if there's any workbook questions from chapter 8, and we'll also go over the translations, since the translations are not in the answer key. And then today's lesson will be on pronominal suffixes. We'll talk about those, and we'll go over the vocabulary. So we did this last week. We looked at the 5 books of Moses with the Torah. We had Bereshit, Ve'ele, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Ele Hadevarim. Those are in the beginning. These are the names, or sometimes they just say Shemot, names for short. Vayikra, and he called in the wilderness, Bamidbar, and then these are the words. Sometimes they'll just say Hadevarim, the words for Deuteronomy. But all of those are taken from the first few words, first lines in the Hebrew scriptures for those books. So that's how those are known. We looked at that last week. The Hebrew Bible has 24 books, but the content of these 24 books is exactly the same as our 39 books of the Old Testament. So they're exactly the same. The divisions are just a little bit different. So if the content is the same, why is there a difference in the numbers? Well, the Hebrew Bible has 1 book for Samuel, not 1st and 2nd Samuel. They have 1 book for Kings, not 1st and 2nd Kings. They have 1 book for Chronicles, not 1st and 2nd Chronicles. And so we gain 3 extra books by having a 1st and 2nd for all 3 of those. The minor prophets are all considered 1 book. And so that's, there's 12 minor prophets. The reason why it's plus 11 is because they have 1 already. They've got the minor prophets. And so that's a gain of 11 for us. And then Ezra and Nehemiah are considered 1 book. So we gain 1 book there. So you take this totals 15. So if we take 24 books of the Hebrew Bible, we add in these 15. Those 15. We equal 39, and that's how many books we have in our Bible. So that's the difference. That's why we have more books of the Bible, but the content is the same. Now, the English Bible is divided up. We have 5 books of Moses. Sometimes it's called the Pentateuch. That's the Greek word that comes from Greek. Or sometimes it's referred to as the law, or we looked at it last week, the Torah. So there's 5. Then we have 12 history books. Then we have 5 poetry books. Then we have the 5 major prophets. Then we have the 12 minor prophets. It's kind of interesting. We have this kind of 5, 12, 5, but 5 is doubled this time and back to 12 again. It's just, I don't know. So that's kind of a symmetry thing or a pattern thing. I used to be a computer programmer, so I'm supposed to find patterns. Anyway, that's how we have the English Bible divided up. The Hebrew Bible is called the Tanakh, and the T is this Tav, the N is this Nun, and the KH is this Kaf. And so they call it the Tanakh, and we spell it out this way in English, but that's, in fact, I was talking to a guy from Israel at a meeting one time before I retired, and I told him I read through the Tanakh, I read through the Hebrew scriptures, I read through the Tanakh, and was a little weak, and he said, "You mean the Tanakh?" And yes, the Tanakh. Anyway, it's divided up into 3 sections. We have the Torah in English letters. We have the Nevi'im, English letters. We have the Ketuvim. This is the law, is Torah. The prophets is Nevi'im. The writings are Ketuvim. So there's 5 books of law, same as what we have. And there's 8 prophets, 8 books of prophets. And then there's the 11 books of the writings. Now, how does that lay out? Well, the sequence of the books of the Hebrew Bible, when it comes to the Torah, it's exactly the same as Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, except, of course, we use Bereshit and so forth is different. The Nevi'im, it's kind of an unusual thing in our thinking that we'd have Joshua and Judges being in the prophets, the Nevi'im. Samuel, maybe so, because Samuel was the first, he was the last of the judges and the first of the prophets, and so that kind of makes a little sense. Kings is, well, anyway, that's just different in our line of thinking. Isaiah, that makes sense. Jeremiah makes sense. Ezekiel makes sense. And then the 12, which is what they call the minor prophets, the 12. Those are the books of the prophets, the Nevi'im. The Ketuvim are the writings. Now, we expect to see Psalms and Job and Proverbs. We're not used to seeing Ruth here in this last section, but Song of Songs, Ecclesiastes, but we're a little surprised to see Lamentations, which is written by Jeremiah. Esther, that makes sense. But then we have Daniel. He's a prophet. Why is he not in the prophets? But he comes from the time of the Babylonian captivity. It was afterwards, and that probably has something to do with it. Ezra, Nehemiah, it is often thought that Ezra wrote Chronicles too. And so these are, again, later books from after the Babylonian captivity. And it's thought that Chronicles was also written, by Ezra after the Babylonian captivity. The Kings seems to be telling us the story that, or not the story, but conveying the idea that if we are disobedient, we will get punished. Chronicles seems to be written to people returning from their captivity. That's why he's got so much about genealogies in the first 9 chapters, because you have to reset up the priesthood and everything. They have to rebuild. But Chronicles seems to tell us if we do what's right, we'll be blessed. They just kind of have a different approach. I love the book of Chronicles. But anyway, that's the layout of the Tanakh, the Hebrew scriptures. Okay, did anybody have any questions on the workbook? Well, did anybody have any questions about the Hebrew Bible, the stuff I was just going through?
You're gonna, oh, we don't.
Sorry?
Bruce, we were wondering, do you know why we changed the books of the Bible in our Bible? Why did we
separate in Chronicles first and second? You were talking about the quantity, 39 to 24.
Yeah, and
if you
do. Some of that comes from other translations between Hebrew and English, like I'd have to go back and look this. I believe that books of Samuel and Kings and Chronicles are all separated into 2 books in the Septuagint. So that was the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures done about 300 BC through 100 BC. And I think that some of the books are separated out the way and actually named the same. We get some of the names from the Vulgate, translated by Jerome about 400 AD. And so we have other influences that have brought us to where we are in English translation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, my pleasure. Okay, any other questions on that? Oh, and no, I don't work for Chick-fil-A, even though I say my pleasure. But it really is my pleasure to talk about the things of God and to talk about the scriptures. It's certainly my pleasure. All right, are there any questions about the workbook on chapter 8?
Bruce, I had a couple questions.
Okay.
On page 31, under section 3, that translate the following sentences, could you translate number 3 and 4, please?
3 and 4.
Yes.
Okay.
On page 31. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Well, notice on number 3 that we start off with the adjective and it comes before the noun. And so we're going to have to add a to be verb. So we're going to say, the elders are more wise than the evil prophets. Just going word by word, we have the wise ones, the elders. So the elders are wise. And then we have the mean preposition with that may. We don't have the dogish and the hey because that's a guttural, right? So that, but it's still the mean. So we can say the elders are wise ones from the prophets, the evil ones. That would be looking at each word woodenly, but mean is often used in a comparative sense to say more than. So yeah, my final translation on that would be the elders are more wise than the evil prophets. Notice for evil prophets, you have, well, we have may, but let's take that off for a second. And we have ha-nevi'im, okay, so that's the prophets and the evil ones, ha-ra'im, the evil ones. And so that is an attributive adjective. And so we're going to have the evil prophets. Okay, then number 4, this land is greater than that land. And so we have great first. Notice that that's feminine. We have gedolah, feminine, but we have haaretz. Well, land is feminine, even though that's one of those irregular ones that it looks masculine, but it's actually feminine. The adjective always tells us the truth, and so so we have great, the land, this one. So this land is greater. We're going to say greater because we have that may again. It's the mean preposition and it's comparison. So you could say from this great, the city, this one, from the land. I'm sorry, did I say city? I meant land. Great, the land, this one, from the land, that one. But smoothing that out, you'd say this land, because you put zot first, this land is greater than, because we have that may preposition there, greater than the land, that one, or that land. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Still my pleasure. Any other questions on the workbook? All right, then let's go over the Bible translation on page 32, because as I said, I don't think that's in the answer key. So the first one would be after these things, or after these words. Devarim, we have achar as after, and then hadevarim. Words is sometimes just used for things or matters. You know, this thing, this matter, this word. You just have to go by context. So you translate it either way. You say after these things, you say after these words. But then we have ha-ele. We have to bring that that's in the attributive position. So these things, after these things, after the things that these ones would be wooden. Number 2, we have these are the words which Moses spoke. Ele, these, and since that comes before the words, we have to add a to be verb. So these are the things, or these are the words. Let's stick with words. These are the words which, and deber is he spoke. Oh, he's got that in parentheses here. But it's the third masculine singular. We'll study that when we get to chapter 13, if I remember right. And this is good verb subject sequence in Hebrew. Oftentimes you'll have the verb and then the subject. So, which Moses spoke. These are the words which Moses spoke. Number 3, we have zot, and it precedes the noun. And so we're going to have to supply a to be verb. And this is the commandment. Number 4, we have this following day. They're both definite, both have the article. the day, this one. And so odd is until or as far as, let's just go with until this day, until this day. Wouldn't until the day of this one, but since since ze is in the attributive position, it's modifying day, so until this day. Number 5. And you are Yahweh God, or you could say, and you are the Lord God. Some people translate Yahweh as Lord. Most English translations do. I was thankful to see the LSB when it came out. They actually insert the name Yahweh in there. I think that's better. But either way, so Va'ata and you, Yahweh. This is a verbless clause. We have to supply a to be verb, and you are Yahweh God, or you are the Lord God. Number 6, all these kings. Again, we have kings. It's got an article on the front, ha, malakim. And we have ha ele. And so the kings, these ones. So you turn that around to these kings. We have kol, which is, by the way, that comments on kol, that's always the O version, not the A version. So kol, all these kings. Number 7, ma is what? What ma? So then zot, we have zot before the verb, sita. So what this you did, or we'd probably say, what is this you did, or what did you do? Or what have you done? You got that. Okay, number 8. Ze comes before the noun, and so we're going to have to add a to be verb. So this is my name forever. This is the name of me, Shemi. We're going to be looking at pronominal suffixes, and that's one right there. That hirikiot, shame is name. You add the pronominal suffix, it changes the vowels. We have some vowel reduction there. But that hirikiot at the end of name means my name. We'll be looking at that as we get into chapter 9. This is my name, la'olam, for forever, or what is forever. This is my name forever. Number 9, who is Yahweh, or who is the Lord? Again, a lot of English translations are going to say the Lord, put Lord in capital letters, but not me. I would just say Yahweh. Who, and notice the who comes before the name Yahweh. We have to supply a to be verb. So who is Yahweh, or who is the Lord? And then number 10, I am Yahweh, and there is not still, or there is not again. Let's look at this again. So we have ani. Ani is a independent pronoun. It's going to be the subject, has to be the subject. We need to have a to be verb in there, add the to be verb. So I am Yahweh, the and ain, there is not, the particle of non-existence. And there is not, and you could just say another, but that's not really what the word means. It's smoother in English that way. Ode usually means ode. That's a song, right? An ode. You sing an ode to something, and so I just think of ode like you're going to sing it again, or you're still singing that. So anyway, still or again. So I would, in my wooden way, I would say I am Yahweh, and there is not still, or there is not again, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense in English. So you'd probably say there's not another. That's about the only way to put that. Any questions on that? Maybe that actually took care of that slide. Right to that. Okay, so let's start getting into chapter 9, pronominal suffixes. Just a quick review. A pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. We looked at this. This came from last week. I stuck it up here and put review up here at the top because we've already seen these slides from last week's lesson. It's a word that replaces a noun. I, you, he. This is a personal pronoun. We have demonstratives. We have relative pronouns. We have interrogatives. But we're going to be mostly looking at personal pronouns today. Okay. Hebrew independent personal pronouns. Yes, independent, that means they're standalone words. They're not stuck onto the front of other words or on the back of other words. They're not attached. They're separate words. They inflect for person, gender, and number. And the independent personal pronouns, the ones we looked at last week, are all in the subjective case. They're going to be the subject of the sentence. Hebrew pronouns in other cases are not independent. Not independent. What that means is they will be packed on like Legos. I've used Legos before as illustration, and we're going to just like Legos, we're just going to stick them onto the words. Okay. And these are the ones we looked at last week. You need to memorize these. Ani is going to be the most common I. Anachnu is going to be the most, well, we. Atem, you see that one a lot. Ata, you see that one a lot. At, you see probably less than 100 times. And this one I think was only, well, I had that last week. It's just a few times. So anyway, we have to learn those. But then let's just highlight some things. Oops, that's on a later one. I got ahead of myself. So anyway, these are the independent personal pronouns. So for today, we want to learn what a pronominal suffix is, or what the pronominal suffixes are, want to understand the forms of Hebrew pronominal suffixes, and learn how pronominal suffixes are used. So right now, we're going to look at what pronominal suffixes are. Pronominal suffixes. It might sound like a big thing, just like something over the top, but it really makes sense. Pronominal, it basically means a pronoun. It is a pronoun, and a suffix comes at the end of the word. So pronominal suffixes are pronouns attached to the ends of words. So that's what a pronominal suffix is. Not too difficult of a concept here. It's a pronoun attached to the end of the word, just like I've talked about Legos. Now for English, we have subjective. If it's the subject of the sentence, you're going to say, I did this, you did that, he, she, or it did that. But then we have the objective and possessive that change things. We don't say, Bonnie gave a sandwich to I. We say to me. You doesn't change. Bonnie gave a sandwich to him or to her. It's, that's the objective case. And possessive, my, your, his, her, its. So when we're looking at pronominal suffixes, we're basically looking at this functionality over here, the objective and possessive. The subjective were the independent pronouns that we looked at last week. So let's break these down, kind of sort through the use here. So we have the subjective, I, you, he, she, we. So those are singular, and then we have the plural, we, y'all, they. Objective, me, you, him, her, us, y'all, them. Possessive, my, your, his, her, our, your, their. Their, spelled T-H-E-I-R. The independent personal pronouns are in the subjective case. Pronominal suffixes are in the objective and possessive cases. So the subjective is going to be independent pronouns. Objective are going to be pronominal suffixes. Possessive will be pronominal suffixes. Subjective independent pronouns stand alone. For objective pronominal suffixes, that's going to be a pronominal suffix added onto the definite direct object marker, or onto prepositions, or even onto verbs. Okay. And then the possessive pronominal suffixes is when you attach a pronominal suffix to a noun, and a nominal, something like a noun. That's something that's behaving as a noun. All right. So Hebrew pronominal suffixes are either used as possessive or objective. The first person pronominal suffixes are, for both singular and plural, they are common. That means that it doesn't matter whether you're masculine or feminine, it works for both. The second and third person, however, do have separate forms for masculine and feminine. Just an example to kind of get a feel for what we're talking about. New. New is the first person plural pronominal suffix. And so we have Elohim, that's God, but if you've ever listened to some Hebrew prayers, you may hear them say Eloheinu, Eloheinu. The new tells us our God. So you Baruch Adonai Eloheinu, blessed be the name of the Lord, or blessed be the name of, blessed be the Lord our God. What did I say? Baruch Hashem, blessed be the name Adonai, the Lord, Eloheinu, our God. So anyway, Eloheinu, that new, that's telling you it's a first person common plural. Doesn't matter whether you're talking about men or women, it's used the same new. So that's basically how this all gets put together. So now we want to understand the forms of the pronominal suffixes. All right, there's two main types. There's also some alternates. The book, I really take issue with the book because they put third person first. My pen quit working. In both for plural and there, singular and plural. And then they put second, quit again, there. And then they put first at the bottom. And that just drives me nuts. Now, I don't know, it's because everything I've ever looked at with language was always first, second, and third person in that order. When I took Greek, everything was first, second, and third person. And then I picked up this Hebrew book and things are in third, second, first order, and it just drives me nuts. So my brain just doesn't work that way. I had difficulty not only in pronominal suffixes, but also with when we get into verbs, looking at the call perfects and call imperfects. They do the same thing. They put third person first. And I actually just had to write my own little chart and put it in first, second, third, and then I had no trouble memorizing it. It just didn't work with my brain, or my brain didn't work with that. So this is, and by the way, I'll be sending out a chart when I send out I'll send out a couple of things. One, I'm going to send out pronominal suffixes chart, and then I'm also going to send out a PDF of vocabulary words with mnemonic, what's the word I'm looking at? With memory helps to help you remember them. So I'm going to try to get those sent out when I send out the link to the video for this lesson. All right, that's a little too much for this. Getting back to pronominal suffixes, we have type 1 and type 2. Okay, so there's two major types. We do have an alternate, and we'll look at those. So type 1, and then we have first person common. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female, but then we have masculine, feminine, second person, masculine, feminine. These are all singular. There, singular, and then we have the plurals, first, second, third. And we'll go through and look at these in detail. So those are the type 1. There are some alternates for type 1, and we'll look at those too. And then the type 2. And we'll talk about what the difference is and why are there two types. It'll all be clear here in just a few minutes. All right, so that's all of them. And the chart that I send out to you, it's nice and colorful and it's suitable for framing. And hopefully it'll help you in memorizing, or at least getting, I don't think you actually have to come to a place where you go through and recite them, say E, cha, O, ah, new. I didn't memorize them that way, but what you do need to be able to do is recognize them when you see them. When you're reading a word and you see ka at the end, that you'll know what that means. You do have to be able to recognize all of them. All right. This is where I thought I was earlier. So here's the independence we looked at, but looky here. New. Looky over here. He. Looky over here. Aim. Pain. These highlighted in red now, those are going to be things that what you've learned with the independent personal pronouns, you'll see some of that carries over to pronominal suffixes as well. So coming back here, we're going to look at first person common singular and look at that, yods. Now, if you look through the rest of the list, you won't find something ending with a yod anywhere else. When you see it ending with a yod, you know it's going to be first person common singular. When you look at first person common plural, it's new. And if you look around on here, you don't see anything else with new, just first person common plural. So what you want to look at are the big things that are the same in this, and it'll just make it a whole lot easier for you to be able to look at it, see it, and know what you need to do with it. Okay, so first common singular is yod. I'm sorry, first person plural is new, with like we talked about earlier, like Eloheinu. All right. And then the alternate actually has ni. We still have the yod, but it has does have noon with it. Sometimes you'll see it that way. Okay. Now let's look at second person singulars. And we see it's cough, 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 cough. I'm going to say it probably a couple of times. Notice that for masculine, you have the comets there. That's an A vowel. But if you think of masculine, it has an A. Feminine does not. So you can say if you have a cough, and I got another slide where I talk about I cough on you. I cough on you. Cough is always going to be second person. Look at all of them. We'll look down here at second person plurals. They all have coughs. If you see a cough, it's going to be second person. If you see a single cough, a single cough, a single cough, a single cough, it is singular. If you see a cough and there's something following it, cough and something following it, cough and something following it, cough and something, it's plural. If the cough is not alone, then it's plural. I don't know if that helps you to remember it or not, but cough is going to be a indicator of second person. Here's the one I was mentioning, cough on you. And notice that in masculine, we have an A, we have an M and an A. Feminine, we have an N. We actually have two N's. Let's see, these two cancel each other out. So once you cancel these out, the new noon rather is going to be what you look for, and then the M and the A, the mem and the comets will be the things that you look for. So concentrate on the things that are similar. You have to be able to recognize pronominal suffixes. You don't have to be able to recite them, but you have to be able to recognize them. It's going to make all the difference in the world when you're trying to read Hebrew. You have to know who did what to whom, or who something belonged to. And you get that from pronominal suffixes. So coming back to our chart again, looking for that third masculine singular, and we see vowels. We see vowels on everything there. Now we do have shuriks, like down here on the plurals, but that's actually a vowel. This is not a shurik. It looks like a hole in vav. Oh, okay, this one does have okay, who, that's true. Who does. But anyway, if you can kind of think of vavs being related to third person, that'll help. For that's third person masculine. Then for third person feminine, we're going to see haze. And again, with who, we still have a hey with who. By the way, we see here's a hey, and that looks like a dogesh in there. It's not a dogesh. That's actually called a mapeak. It's okay if you call it something else. Now, mapeak actually has a different, I'm trying to remember what that means. I'd have to think about that a little longer, but that's called a mapeak. And so it's, when you see that, this comet's hay, and it's got that mapeak in there, it's always going to be feminine singular. That'll also be a help to you, because it's just an oddball thing to see what looks like a dogesh to be in the hay. And then if we look at the third person plurals, we also see hays on those. So third person hays, that's mostly, well, there aren't any hays on anything except third person. So again, look for the big things that they have in common to be able to recognize them. Okay. Now, taking a closer look at the second masculine plural and third masculine plural, I already talked about this a little bit. When it's followed by a mem, we have the m. So this is chem, achem, hem, ahem. That's going to be, we still have the cough, still second person, still second person, still second person, still second person. But we see the mem there, we know it's masculine. For third person, again, the mem at the end tells us there's no cough, but we see hays, and hays are related to third person, like we saw just a little bit ago. Okay. And then for the third person, or feminine, for the feminine plurals, the second feminine, third feminine plurals, we see the nouns. As I said, we have an extra N in feminine, if that helps you remember. They have the cough here, still second person, but now with the noun, it's going to be feminine. Still got the cough, the noun, it's feminine. And then we got the hay, it's third person. The noun is feminine. And even just having the noun, and well, for the masculine, you have that one too, the noun. But hopefully all of this will help you to put together groups where you can recognize how they're being used. Now, the type 2, so why do we have type 1 and type 2? Type 1 is used when you only have one of something. If you have, okay, sus, horse. If you put a pronominal suffix on it, you're going to use type 1. You have a house, singular house, and you want to put a pronominal suffix on it, you use type 1. A king, if you're only talking about one king, and you want to you want to say my king or our king, you use type 1s. When you use type 2, this means there's more, that means that the noun is plural. I need to make a distinction here on that. When we're looking at this group here, the pronominal suffix is singular. When we're looking at this group here, the pronominal suffix is plural. When we're looking at type 1, the noun is singular. When we're looking at type 2, the noun is plural. Now we're talking about horses. We're talking about kings. We're talking about houses. We're talking about plurals using type 2. Okay. Now the type 2s, what they have in common, every one of them has a yod. Now, in this case, we have to also notice the vowel change with this patak. Okay. That's a little different when it's plural, but everything else, we have the yods in here, but the yods are not the last thing like it is up here on first person singular. So all the type 2s all have yods, and it means if you think of the masculine plural, we have eem, so we have some letter here, and we have eem. It's like the mem goes away, and you still have that yod with the plural, and that's over here, and this all of this. So that means the noun is plural. So, well, okay. So building on that, these would be used if the noun is plural, but the pronoun is singular. These are used when the noun is plural and the pronoun is plural. Most difficult part of understanding pronominal suffix is understanding what is plural. The suffixes on the bottom of the chart indicate the possessive pronoun is plural. The pronoun is plural. This is this section down here. The pronoun is plural. The type 2 suffixes indicate that the noun that is possessed by the pronoun, pronominal suffix, the noun being possessed is plural. And that's this whole section here. That means it's a plural noun. Okay, so that's what they look like. And now we need to look at how they're used. Noun is a person, place, or thing, and if that thing belongs to someone, we use a pronominal suffix. Pronominal suffixes on nouns are possessive. So we have shame. Shame means name. We want to stick a pronominal suffix on it. We have shmi. That's my name. My name. This the Eric Yod there tells us this is a first person common singular. My name, shmi. Nouns with pronominal suffixes are definite. And so you can talk about a name, that's not definite. You say the name, and that's definite. But when I say my name, that's even more specific because now you know what name it is. It's my name. So it becomes definite. That'll be important in chapter 10 next week. So some bonus modern Hebrew phrases here, just to put in to illustrate this a little bit. We already looked at shmi, and shmi, Bruce. My name is Bruce. Shmi, Bruce. Now, if I said, if I was talking to Perry, well, I wouldn't know his name is Perry if I'm asking this, but I'm talking to a man and say, Ma Shimcha. Ma Shimcha. What? The name of you. Masculine. It's a cough. I cough on you. We have the for masculine. So that's how you say to a man, what is your name? Ma Shimcha. If I'm talking to a woman, I would say Ma. No, that doesn't change. Ma. And now we have shemek. Shemek. We have a cough. It's still cough on you, still second person, but we don't have the A vowel in there. And so it's feminine. Okay. Ma shemek. Let's say how you ask a woman what her name is. What's your name? Ma shmo. That's me talking to somebody else, and I say, what's his name? Ma shmo. What is the name of him? Third masculine singular. What is the name of him, or what is his name? And then we have ma shema. Ma shema. What is her name? Notice we have the ma peak. That's third feminine singular. Shema. So what is the name of her? So that's how they work. And that gives you some modern Hebrew phrases you can use. Pronominal suffixes on masculine nouns. Okay, so Seuss is a horse. Okay, that's easy enough. We learned that already. But Susie is going to be my horse. All right. Seuss is still a horse. But Susai is our horse. If you remember, we looked at that. That's still first person common, but with that patak, it becomes plural. And that's kind of just an odd thing. That's the only one out of all the rest of them are easier. This will be the.
Says my horse is on the right.
Oh, right. I said it wrong. This, all right. Forget what I said. I really messed that up. Horse, Seuss is still horse, no problem. This is the type 2 ending. That's where I got off saying the wrong thing here. This is the type 2 ending. And that means that the noun is plural. This becomes horses, but it's still the first common singular pronoun. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I just got off on the wrong track here. So the type 2 tells us it's horses, but the yod here tells us it's mine. All right, sorry about that. Masculine plural nouns take type 2 pronominal suffixes, and the vowel plus yod of the endings replace the eem endings. If you just think about the mem being dropped off and you still get that yod there, that might help you remember the yod for plural, for the type 2 endings. Okay, let's try another one. Sus, I'll try to get it right this time. It's still horse. Okay. And now we're going to sus anu. All right. There's no yod here. This is not type 2, it's type 1. This is type 1. So that means horse is still singular. Horse is still singular, but the pronominal suffix is first person common plural. So this would be our horse. Our horse. And then so sus again is horse, but we're going to add sus anu. Notice the accent changes too. Sus anu. We have the yod. That means that the noun is now plural. So this becomes horses, but this is still our. The new part is still our. But this yod tells us that the horses, it's horses. So it's our horses. Okay. Masculine plural nouns take type 2 pronominal. Masculine plural nouns take type 2 pronominal suffixes with that yod. The vowel plus yod of the endings replace the eem endings that we talked about. So let's take a look in the book on page 80. Page 80, chart under 9.4. And we have all kinds of horses here. His horse, her horse, your horse. And you can go through and see sus is the same all the way through. The first column are all type 1. Nobody's got a yod at the end except for the first person common singular, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one down. Look at the right column. We still have sus, but look at that yod all the way down through there, all the way down except for the first common singular, and we have that patak. So that's my horses. First person pronominal suffix, but a plural noun. So that yod indicates that it's going to be a plural noun. And I think that's all I needed to cover on that. All right. Now you can leave your book open though, because we're going to look at some of these other charts too. The charts help us to see the big picture of what changes. So pronominal suffixes on feminine nouns, we have Torah, the law, and that is obviously a feminine noun because it has the ending, all right? Torah is feminine. It means law. And so we say Torah-ta, Torah-ta. The hey changes into a tav, the feminine tav. We've seen this before. We have the hey with the mapik, so we know that that is third feminine singular, and so that becomes her law, her law. The hey changes to a tav before the pronominal suffixes. Now, when it comes to plurals, torot means laws, plural, with the ot, feminine plural ending there, torot. So we already know it's laws, but when we have the pronominal suffix to it, I'm going to get rid of my circle so we can see it easier. Toroteha, we see that we still have the ot, but we still have the type 2 ending here. We have the yod of the type 2. So actually it's telling us twice that it's plural. It doesn't mean anything more plural or anything like that. It just the word doesn't change from the old feminine plural to something new with a type 2. And so this is still laws, but they'd be her laws, her laws. The feminine hey endings take the normal ot ending for nouns, the plural endings before the type 2 pronominal suffixes, but it still uses the type 2. We still see that yod in there. Okay. Again, we have Torah, which is law. And then we have Toratam, Toratam. And this is a third masculine plural. It's going to be their law. Their law. There's no yod stuck in here. So this is type 1 ending. Okay, then we have Torot, which is obviously plural. It's going to be laws. But Torotehem, Torotehem, we do have this yod in there. That's the type 2 endings. And hem is still the third masculine plural ending. I believe that the mem by itself is one of the alternate endings. And then this would be the actual ending, but we have this type 2 here with the yod. So it's going to be their laws. Their law. So let's look at those on page 81. The feminine ones. We'll look at the feminine ones. The sus is those are the masculine, these are the feminine. And so when you just scan down through the first column on the left there, and you see all the A's of Torah they've all changed to Tavs. They're all Torot or Torot, but it's got a Tav there. And then you have the pronominal suffixes. When you look at second column, we see that ot is used all the way through. That tells you it's plural, but also look, we have that yod all the way down through here. It tells us that this is plural, the type 2 ending, so it's plural. And again, you still have, on the first common singular, you still have that patak there, just as we saw as we were looking at horses instead of laws. Okay. Pronominal suffixes on certain monosyllabic nouns, page 83. This is where it can get a little tricky. The rest of it's pretty straightforward, but you have like achi, ach is brother, achiv would be his brother, achi would actually be my brother. So you have a yod there on all the type 1s, but it's still a singular brother. Notice that when you're looking in the first column, the left column, look at all these hierarchies in there. Hierarch. That's what you want to look for to know that you're talking about a singular brother, as opposed to type 2. And you scan down through there, we'll still see the yods, but we have all kinds of different, we have comets, we have segals, we have pataks, seres, but not hierarchs. We don't have hierarchs. So that's a little bit more tricky. All right. Now, on the next page, 84, we'll look at that here in a little bit, but pronominal suffixes on prepositions. Prepositions can take type 1 or type 2, and it makes no difference on the number. Preposition, you don't have, like with and withs, plurals, it's just with, or it's just for or to. It doesn't change. It's just a pronunciation thing. Make it easier to pronounce, that they use different types. And so when you're looking at a preposition, you don't worry about whether it's type 1 or type 2. For instance, we have l, which can be 2 or 4, but we'll just go with 2. And so let's add a pronominal suffix to it. Lecha, to you, talking to a man. Cough, on you, so it's second person. We have the comets there. That's for masculine, so it's second masculine singular. The cough is by itself. There's nothing else. It's a single cough, so it's second masculine singular. All right, so to you. lecha. And that's pretty common, really. And all can mean either on or over. We'll just go with on. But it's going to use it. And this one is type 1. Okay. But type 2 is going to show up down here on all, on. And we have alecha. It's still on you, even though we see the yod. Yes, it's a type 2. It's a preposition though, on. You don't do anything else with it. Still a cough on you, a second person. We have a comments there for the A, masculine, so it's going to be second person masculine. The cough is all by itself. There's no other letter after it, so it's going to be singular, second masculine singular. On you, alecha, on you. The meaning is the same regardless of the suffix type, whether it's type 1 or 2. Pronominal suffixes on prepositions do not indicate number, just on nouns. Let's see. Pronominal suffixes on prepositions are objective. So to you, on you. As we looked at like the horses or the law, it's always been possessive. These are objective. Okay, pronominal suffixes on prepositions on page 84. Again, if you just look through here, there's no big surprise. We see just the preposition and the normal pronominal suffixes that you need to become acquainted with here. When you look at the type 2s, you see the yods going all the way down through here, but it doesn't really change the meaning of the preposition. All right, now there are words that do change sometimes when you put a pronominal suffix on the preposition. We normally look at just ka. Ka is as or like, or if you're talking about a number, it could be about, or distance or something, it could be about. But if you take a look on page 85, you'll see that it becomes kamoni. That's the first person common singular, kamoni, or kamohu, kamoha, kamocha, kamoch. The pronominal suffixes are the same. They are all type 1. They're all type 1, notice. But you don't have just the cough. You have kamo for the singulars. Now, when it comes down to plurals, only the first person plural has kamo. The rest of them are just coughs like you would expect. For mean, it actually, you end up with 2 mems. It repeats the mem, and so you do get the heric yod under the first, not heric yod, you get the heric under the first mem, and then you get the second mem, and you do get the dagesh for the noon that drops out from mean. But again, the pronominal suffixes are pretty straightforward. There is a confusing element. You have to go by context. If you look at the third masculine singular at the top, mimenu, and if you look at first person common plural at the bottom, mimenu, they look exactly the same. You have to look at the context. But in all the cases of the singulars where you have an additional mem, you do get the dagesh from the noon of mean assimilated into that dagesh. And then the same way as kamonu, you have mimenu for the first person common plural, but all the rest of them you just go back to the singular mem again. So that also is a little bit different. All right, pronominal suffixes with a direct object marker. That's going to be on page 86, but I'm going to go to back to the screen here. Pronominal suffixes with the direct object marker, and we'll also look at the word with, or the how we end up with the word with what looks like the direct object marker. Okay, so we have 8 definite direct object marker, which is not translated. We also have 8 that sometimes can mean with, All right. But if we have OT, that means me. That's going to be an objective pronoun, me. And then 8 for with. Okay, there's me. OT is me. It's going to become ET for with me. With me. The me still comes from the pronominal suffix here and here. But when you see it's got with a dogash and the heric, that's going to be with me. So it could be me or with me. Oh, I've got a slide on that somewhere here. Heric vowel indicates with. Pronominal suffixes on the direct object, definite direct object marker are objective. They are the object of the sentence. So when we look at the object, it's going to have the O vowel. Let's go back here. See the O vowel right here. Where that sees there. So got the O vowel, that's object. It's just me. When you have an I vowel with a dogash, an I vowel, let's go back and look at the other one again. I vowel with a dogash, it means with. Okay. So we can look at those on page 86. And as you scan down through the first column, look at all those O vowels, O, till you get down to about the last, the second and third to last. And you have segals instead. But that's still pretty easy to see the definite direct object marker, and then you get the pronominal suffixes that you'll be learning this week. And then that's object, me, you, him, her, them. But then when we see in the second column, the right column, look at all those herics, all the way through. Heric means with. And if you look to the tav all the way through, they all have dogashes in them. So that's pretty consistent and easy to tell what you're looking at there. Okay. And while we're on definite direct object markers, we were introduced to those in chapter 6, and it's not some kind of mystical word for Jesus being the first letter and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. An analogy to this is, what if you go back in time and you're talking to the prophet Isaiah, and he wants to know something about English, and you're trying to teach him how to translate it, and he says something about the quote mark. He says, well, what's that? And you say, well, that means that's the beginning of direct speech. And he says, well, how do I translate that in Hebrew? Well, you can't translate it in Hebrew. It's not a word. It is a grammatical feature of English. And in the same way, the definite direct object marker is a grammatical feature in Hebrew. It doesn't get translated over into English. Its function is to point out the direct object. So we have a sentence like, he wrote the words in the book. He wrote. And then we can see that the direct object, what was it he wrote? The words in the book. The definite direct object is identified with the et there. Most of the time, Hebrew uses verb, subject, object, word order. However, sometimes a noun is emphasized by fronting it, putting it at the front of the sentence. And so we have in Deuteronomy 10:20, et Yahweh, Elohecha Tirah. Yahweh, the God of you, and of course this yod's here because Elohim is plural, right? So it uses the type 2 ending. You will study this in chapter 15, I believe. You will fear. So we say, Yahweh, your God, you will fear. In English, you can say, you will fear Yahweh, your God, but then that loses the emphasis. You don't have Yahweh fronted here. You will fear Yahweh, your God. It's a true statement, or should be true. That's what you should do, but you lose that emphasis. But you can say, it is Yahweh, your God, you will fear. Now that kind of brings back that emphasis a little bit by leaving Yahweh up front. So in Hebrew, you cannot use an independent pronoun as an object. They are always the subject. So how do you create a pronoun as a direct object? You use the definite direct object marker and add a pronominal suffix, just like what we had looked at back on the earlier, as we're looking at. And if we have a Uric, that's with, but if you have the O vowel, and then if you have like a OT, it's going to just be me, just me. Okay, that's how you get me. That's how you get a pronoun that is the object. All right, so I will send out something that looks more like this. It's colorful, it's like I say, suitable for framing, and it's got things colorized to all the yods are black, the coughs are all red. For second person, so you can, color helps you to see what's common for that person, right? So second person, you have the coughs. Third person, you have the haze, right? Oops, what in the world did I do there? I imagine you probably all saw that. So anyway, oh, I see what it was, because it had little buttons down here at the bottom. So anyway, I'll send that out. So you know that when you're looking at it, it's easy to see yod as first person, nu is first person plural, cough is always used for second person. And if it's got the a vowel, it's masculine. The cough is the final consonant, nothing else with it, it's going to be singular. If the cough is followed by a mem or noon, it's going to be plural. If it ends with a vav, but not nu, it's third masculine singular. If it's hey, it's third person. And the same thing, mem will indicate masculine, noon, feminine. So if the suffix is preceded by a yod, the noun is plural. That's the type twos. So you begin to see that the prefixes and suffixes are packed in the Hebrew words, making them very efficient. Like I've said, Legos earlier, you just build the words. We often have to use multiple English words to communicate the meaning of a single Hebrew word. That's even more true when we get into verbs. I should mention that when you look up a word in a Hebrew dictionary, or if you're looking using something like Strong's Concordance, you need to know that when you see the word in a dictionary, everything has been stripped out of that word. They've taken all the Legos apart and just given you the central Lego, and they give you basic meaning for what it is stripped off. And so you don't have anything there to tell you how the word's being used or what the meaning is. It's not the actual word of the biblical text. And that's why we learn Hebrew and Greek. I've had people ask, well, how do you know how to translate that? As well, you basically have to learn Hebrew or you have to learn Greek, because you have to see it and know what all the parts are. So let's go over the vocabulary. I know we're running a little behind here. Vocabulary is on page 89. The first word is off. Off. Notice the plural at the very end there, apine. It means nose or nostril. Apine would be like two, so that's usually nostrils. But it's often used also for anger. So when it says that the Lord is gracious and slow to anger, it actually says he's long of nose. That's probably, I think, in one of the insight things in this. I don't remember which chapter that's in. But so off is nose, but it can be used for anger. Bakar. Bakar means cattle or herd. It's not the same as an ox per se. It's a more general term. Boker. They have the same letters, bakar and boker. The vowels are different, but boker is morning. And we learned that early on. Boker tov, good morning. I think we went through those. I think that was among the ones we learned. Beracha. Beracha is blessing, and that's where we get like, well, we won't go there yet. Beracha, blessing. Chatat. Notice that the aleph doesn't have a vowel, so you just have cha, tat. You don't have a sound there for the aleph. That means sin. The interesting thing, though, is that that is also used for the sin offering. And you just have to go by context to know whether it's talking about sin or sin offering. Kavod, glory. It's actually, the root of that is means weighty. But back when I was young, we used to say, oh, that's heavy. Or if you ever watch Back to the Future, they do that. Oh, that's heavy. And that means it's weighty. It's not something to be taken lightly. In the same way, the glory of God is not something to be taken lightly. God is not to be taken lightly. Next word, kli. Kli means a vessel, but it's also used when referring to weapons or a guy who is the weapon, the armor bearer, like Jonathan or Saul or David had armor bearers, or Joab. They would be the ones carrying the vessels, as it were, kli. Vessels or weapons. Lechem. Notice the accent on the first letter. Lechem is bread. So Beit Lechem, that's Bethlehem. Lechem, bread. Milchama. Milchama means war. Mishpacha. Mishpacha means family. Mishpachot is families. It's feminine. You see that both war and family here is feminine. Means people. It's usually referring to like a people group. It's yeah, people. Eitz means tree. O is or. Ain means ain't. It means there is not. That's the particle of non-existence. I mentioned that earlier. The particle of non-existence. If you can think of ain't when you see ain, that's, oh, well, I guess the lexical form here they have is ain, but the way you see it most often it's spelled ain. And so that's why I said it that way. Gam is also. Hain is behold. Hine, behold. Yesh, this is the particle of existence. It's the opposite of ain. This means there is. There is. Levad means alone. Saviv means around or surrounding. And that's it. Okay, did anybody have any questions? Oh, before I go to questions, things will make learning Hebrew easier. Work on it every day. Memorize what you should memorize. Write out how words are formed. Like, get the root out there and then add the and to it or the to it or a pronominal suffix to it, how they're formed. Break Hebrew sentences into the main parts, including case, gender, number, the nouns, and modifiers. Okay, now are there any questions from what we covered? This is kind of heavy. I had, just to jump down, I had some exercises on using pronominal suffixes. So like chem is you all, chem is you all, cha is masculine, is feminine. We don't have time to do that. I might take those and maybe put next week's, we have fewer slides and maybe I'll put these at the beginning. We'll do a quick review on pronominal suffixes next week. But go ahead and work on your learning the pronominal suffixes. Again, focus on the things that are similar. Look for so when you see a cough, just automatically know that second person and then look at it a little bit more closely to find out whether it's masculine, feminine, or whether it's singular or plural. So try. You don't have to recite them all, but you do have to be able to recognize them all. And hopefully some of the things I've mentioned will help you with determining what you're looking at there. So go ahead and do the exercise 9 in the workbook, and then we'll go on to chapter 10, which is the Hebrew construct chain. Like I say, I think that's going to be a shorter lesson, and maybe we'll do a review of pronominal suffixes, and hopefully that'll be helpful just to work through what we're looking at on those. Okay, any questions? All right, thank you.